A king born with a mental disability, even when tricked out of his expensive clothes and subjected to ridicule and scorn by the people, still faced everyone around him with a smile. Amidst the cheers of the citizens, a new king officially ascended the throne. He promised the people that he would make the country great again. However, the true power of the nation lay in the hands of the Pope's faction. The Pope, wielding real authority, issued conscription orders to raise an army, recruiting soldiers like Fried and Raz. He also enacted new laws in the king's name, announcing increased tariffs to subsidize military expenses. Upon hearing these new policies, the citizens were utterly shocked and deeply worried about their future. Even the penguins living in the polar regions were not spared from the newly imposed tariffs. At the same time, the government deployed sentries, citing national security, to force the people to sign security agreements. These sentries were nothing more than bullies who preyed on the weak, yet they cowered before those in power. They lived leisurely lives in the royal palace, while ordinary people trying to flee the country were forced to make painful choices. Those wanting to engage in exports and imports had to pay high tariffs, further widening the gap between the rich and the poor. The royal family also issued a series of prohibitions restricting citizens' activities. Those who failed to pay taxes on time or were unable to do so were subjected to forced collection methods, sometimes in the form of bartering property for tax payment, though some of these acts were merely pranks by skull servants. As a result, theft became rampant in the streets, and public safety descended into chaos. The royal family continued to squeeze labor from the people, not even sparing the starving and homeless. Meanwhile, a resistance movement began to secretly form underground, swearing to unite and launch a revolution. The king, upon hearing this, became enraged. He indulged in gluttony and had no idea what the Pope had done, nor why the people wanted to rebel. He only knew that he treated others sincerely, yet this was the outcome he faced. Eventually, the day of the huge revolution arrived. The furious king had long ordered Raz to make preparations and launched a counter-revolution. The revolutionaries were suppressed and even imprisoned. Yet the king was unaware that danger had already crept in. Dream Clown and swarm of scarabs had invaded the royal palace. Their aim was to summon blazing Inpachi to ravage the country. Even Raz fell before Inpachi. The Pope then gathered marauding Captain and Gigabite to form two-man squads for combat, but they too were defeated. The defeated captains suffered much scolding from the king, who was eventually forced to send out Chopman the desperate outlaw to resolve the threat. At that moment, the goblin attack force had already infiltrated the royal palace. The king fought them off with his own strength, pushing the goblins into retreat and forcing them to abandon their invasion. Yet the voices of the revolutionaries had not faded. The merciful maiden, guided by guardian angel Joan, overcame the temptations of the Dark Lord within her. She transformed into noble knight Joan and led the people in a new uprising. The rebels wielded ballistae to destroy the castle walls, while throwstone units launched ranged attacks from the catapult zone to shatter the fortifications. The royal palace issued an all-out mobilization order. The battle was fierce and closely contested. In the end, however, the palace fell. The king had no choice but to seek asylum in a neighboring country. But the neighboring monarch turned his back on him and refused aid. Though the king struggled and sank into despair, he could not escape the condemnation of the masses at the foot of the ruined walls. The consequences of the excessive tariffs finally came back to haunt the nation. The external trade market was hit hard, causing the stock market to plummet, with investors suffering massive losses. The unilateral tariff increases sparked a trade war. The national economy suffered, and public discontent grew. Mass protests erupted against the king. In the end, the king was thoroughly disgraced and rejected by all. As the new monarch declared his ascension, the imprisoned revolutionaries were pardoned, and the suppressed rebels regained their freedom. The new king appointed Saint Joan as the army's commander and recruited a group of extraordinary individuals into the military. But where did they come from?